So let's start with an image. Imagine a mothership.
Okay.
And I don't mean the Independence Day kind of hovering over the White House, casting this huge shadow.
Right, not sci-fi.
Not sci-fi. I mean a very real, very heavy 10-ton aerial vehicle. It's cruising high above the Pacific, and then its belly opens up. But it doesn't drop a bomb. It drops a swarm.
The Jutean.
That's the one. China showed it off a few months back. It's basically a flying aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
But instead of jets, it just unleashes these waves of smaller attack drones. The range is something like 2,000 kilometers.
It's an incredible piece of engineering and a terrifying one.
Really is.
And it's the perfect symbol for where we are right now. It is Thursday, February 12th, 2026. And if you're listening, you probably already have the sense that the future of warfare isn't really in the future anymore. It's kind of hovering.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we have a very specific mission. We're not just looking at the big, shiny hardware like the Jutean. We've been digging through a huge stack of sources, white papers from Beijing, field reports from CSIS, some really tough investigations from Plus 972 magazine on Gaza, and of course, the latest draft treaties coming out of Geneva.
And the headline from all of this is, well, it's uncomfortable. We're looking at the exact moment where the human being stops being the operator of the weapon and starts becoming just a safety check.
Or worse, just a rubber stamp.
Just a purpose.
So today, we're going to unpack the swarms, the literal apps that are running the Russian front, and the algorithms that have defined so much of the conflict in Gaza.
Yeah.
And most importantly, why this year, 2026, is basically the final exit ramp for international law.
It really is the make or break year. If we don't get the rules sorted out now, the technology just runs away from us for good.
Okay, so let's start with the absolute basics, because autonomous is one of those words like AI or, crypto. Everyone uses it, but no one seems to agree what it actually means. In a military context, are we talking about the Terminator here?
Not quite yet, thankfully. But this definition problem is actually a huge diplomatic hurdle. It completely depends on who you asked.
Right.
If you look at the U.S. Department of Defense, their definition is very practical. For them, an autonomous weapon is a system that, once you activate it, can select and engage targets without any more human help.
Select and engage. So that's the key. I turn it on, I draw a box on a map, and I can walk away.
Yeah.
The machine decides what and who gets hit inside that box.
That's basically it, yes. But then you look at, say, the UK Ministry of Defense. They set the bar much, much higher. They argue that for a system to be truly autonomous, it has to be capable of understanding higher level intent.
Understanding it, that sounds philosophical, like
Yeah.
the robot needs to pass an ethics class before it can fire a missile.
Exactly. It implies a level of machine intelligence, almost sentience, that we arguably haven't even reached yet. And critics would say the UK uses that definition so they can claim, oh, we don't have autonomous weapons because their drones are just highly automated.
It's a semantic loophole.
A very convenient one.
So if the official definitions are that messy, how do the engineers and the people building these things actually talk about it?
They use the spectrum of control. You should think of it in 3 tiers. The first is human in the loop. That's semi-autonomous.
Like a Predator drone.
Exactly like a Predator drone. It flies itself, it stabilizes itself, but a human in Nevada pushes the button to actually fire the missile. The human pulls the trigger.
Okay.
Then you have human on the loop. That's supervisory. The system is doing the work. It's scanning. It's locking on. It might even be ready to engage. But a human is watching and has an abort switch.
So the machine's driving, but I can grab the wheel if it heads for a cliff.
Precisely. And then finally, you get to human out of the loop. You activate it, and that's it. It operates completely independently. It finds the target, it executes the strike, and you find out about it after the fact.
And that brings us right back to that Chinese mothership and this idea of swarms. Because we're not just talking about one robot anymore, we're talking about swarm intelligence.
This is the big shift in the last year or so, moving from single, expensive platforms to these decentralized groups. Think of bees or a flock of birds. Our sources point to a new Swedish program from Saab. It lets a single soldier control up to 100 unmanned systems at the same time.
One person, 100 drones. I mean, that just changes the entire math of the battlefield. But how does that even work? Do they have 100 little screens?
No, and that's the intelligence part. The drones talk to each other. It's a mesh network. If drone A spots a threat, it tells drone B and C instantly, without the human having to do anything. They coordinate their own flight paths so they don't collide. The human just says, go to that grid square, and the swarm itself figures out the how.
That sounds incredibly difficult to code.
It is, And the U.S. is scrambling to catch up with its replicator program. The goal was to have thousands of cheap autonomous systems in the field by August 2025. But the reports we're seeing show they're struggling. It's not a hardware problem, it's the software.
Getting them all to talk to each other.
Exactly. Getting thousands of machines to communicate in a hostile environment where the enemy is trying to jam your signals, that is a huge computer science problem.
The economic pressure to solve it is immense. We saw the stat in the Defense Security Monitor. A single Iris-T interceptor missile costs around $450,000. A Shahed 136 drone that it might be shooting at, $20,000.
That's the asymmetry of cost. If I can make you spend $500,000 to stop my $20,000 drone, I win the economic war even if my drone gets shot down.
I'll bankrupt you before you can shoot them all down.
You will, and this reality is forcing every major military towards what they call a treadable mass.
A treadable, meaning stuff that's cheap enough you don't care if you lose it.
You can afford for it to be destroyed. Precisely.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the software that's actually running this new reality, which, looking at Russia's evolution, is just fascinating.
Yeah, let's get into that, because I think the common idea of the Russian military is still, heavy metal, tanks, artillery, very 20th century. But the CSIS report we read paints a picture of this huge pivot to software.
They call it the appification of war. Russia spent years trying to build this enormous, centralized Death Star command system, the ACCS. It was too rigid, it didn't work well in Ukraine. So they pivoted to small, agile, tactical apps.
The report highlights a system called Glazgrossa.
Right. Glaz is eye, and Grossa is thunder. It's a two-part complex. A drone pilot on the front line uses the Glaz app on a tablet to mark a target. That coordinate goes instantly to the Grossa app being used by an artillery unit, which then calculates the ballistics automatically.
So it's basically Uber for artillery strikes. You drop a pin and a shell arrives.
And it cut the kill chain. The time from spotting a target to hitting it from hours down to just minutes. But what's really wild is how they got there. Initially, Russian troops were apparently using the gaming app Discord and a hiking map app called Alpine Quest.
Wait, hold on, Discord. The app my nephew uses to talk about video games.
The very same. It's just absurd when you think about it. A nuclear power was coordinating artillery strikes in a gamer chat room.
But
why? Because it worked. It had low latency, it handled streaming video from the drones, and it was easy to use. It was only when security concerns got too big that they were forced to build their own domestic versions, like ZOV maps. But it shows that modern war isn't always about billion-dollar defense contracts. Sometimes it's just about the app that works.
But this is where it gets really dystopian. They're not just tracking the enemy. The sources say they're tracking their own pilots, this gamification idea.
Yes. In 2025, they rolled out a new database. It tracks individual drone pilot performance through personal IDs. Every hit, every miss, every drone lost, it's all recorded. They're literally scoring their soldiers.
Like a leaderboard in a video game.
Yeah.
But they can't just be doing this for bragging rights.
No, of course not. Think about what that data is. It's a massive labeled data set of this is what a successful hit looks like, and this is what a tank looks like from the air in winter. They are feeding all of that combat data back into their AI training models.
The soldiers are training their own replacement.
In a way, yes. And because of this, the CSIS analysis points out this huge gap. Russia's AI for computer vision for seeing a tank in a muddy field is now very advanced, TRL 6 to 9 they call it. But their AI for planning for text analysis, it's still TRL 1 to 3, very experimental.
So the computer has the eyes of a hawk, but the brain of a toddler.
That's a good way of putting it. But that visual identification piece, that's where the ethical crisis really begins to accelerate. If a machine can identify a target, we tend to trust it. But should we? And for that, we have to look at the Lavender system used in Gaza.
This is a heavy part of the research. We're looking at reports from AOAV and Plus 972 magazine, and I want to be clear for everyone listening. Our goal here is to explain the technology and the methodology described in these reports. This is about how the algorithm was reported to function.
Absolutely. The Lavender system seems to represent a fundamental shift. Traditionally, an intelligence officer builds a case against a target. It's a slow, human, investigative process. Lavender is an AI that assigns a suspect score to tens of thousands of individuals based on their patterns of behavior.
Like who they call, who they associate with, where they go.
All of that. And the reports allege that the system was generating so-called kill lists at a speed that humans just couldn't meaningfully check.
Which is the very definition of automation bias. We trust the computer because it's so much faster than we are.
And the report suggests that intelligence officers were spending as little as 20 seconds reviewing each AI-generated target. The review is often just a rubber stamp, basically checking if the target was male.
20 seconds. I mean, that's barely enough time to read the name on the file. You can't possibly evaluate the intelligence behind a life or death decision in 20 seconds.
You can't. So the human is technically in the loop. Legally, you can say a human made the final call. But if that human is just clicking approve because they don't have the time or the data to argue with the machine's math, are they really exercising control?
And Lavender had a known error rate.
It did. A 10% error rate, a 10% false positive rate. The system operated with the knowledge that 1 in 10 people it flagged could be a civilian, a mistake. But because the objective was speed and mass target generation, that error rate was deemed acceptable.
The reports also mentioned a subsystem with a really chilling name. Where's Daddy?
Yes.
How did that part work?
It was a tracking system designed specifically to alert forces when a target entered their family home. The logic being it's easier to locate someone there than on a chaotic battlefield. But the obvious implication is that strikes were then conducted in residential settings, often at night, instead of a combat zone.
This just blows open what they call the accountability gap. If an AI recommends a strike, and a human blindly agrees because of this bias, and it turns out to be a tragic mistake, who is responsible?
That's the legal black hole we're all staring into. International humanitarian law depends on distinction and proportionality, but if an algorithm is making these calls inside a black box that no human can really scrutinize, accountability becomes almost impossible.
And this isn't just an issue for the big military powers anymore. This tech is spreading everywhere. We've got a source here on the democratization and proliferation of it all.
It's gone global, fast. Look at Turkey. They're exporting the ULAQ, an armed, unmanned sea drone to countries like Qatar. Or look at the UAE. Their Edge group just got an order for 168 autonomous helicopters.
168? That's not a pilot program. That's a whole air force.
It is. And 70% of their sales are now international exports. This stuff is available off the shelf. But the truly terrifying part isn't even the nation states. It's the non-state actors.
The idea of dual-use tech.
Right. You don't need a secret military lab anymore. Terror groups can use commercial AI for what's called red teaming.
What does that mean in this context?
It's scenario planning. They can use AI to simulate attacks. If we hit this power grid, what's the likely response? What's the cascade failure? They're using our own optimization tools to find the weak spots in our societies. And that's before you even get to using AI tools meant for medicine to, say, design biological weapons.
Okay, so we've got swarms, we have AI kill lists with minimal human oversight, and the tech is spreading to everyone. Is anyone even trying to write the rules for this?
Well, that takes us to Geneva, and the clock is ticking loudly.
The 2026 deadline. Why is this year so critical?
Because the UN's group of governmental experts on law's lethal autonomous weapon systems is under immense pressure. They've been talking for years, but now, in early 2026, they're working on a rolling text. It's a draft treaty.
And what's in this draft?
It's a two-tier approach. Tier 1 is simple, an absolute ban on systems that cannot follow international humanitarian law, basically indiscriminate robot killers.
That seems like a pretty easy thing to agree on. Don't build robots that shoot everything that moves.
You'd think so. Tier 2 is regulation for everything else. It requires meaningful human control to be exercised over these weapons.
But there's that word again. What is meaningful? Is that 20-second rubber stamp we talked about earlier? Meaningful.
That is the entire point of contention. The UN Secretary General, the Red Cross, they are demanding a legally binding treaty this year. They want strict definitions. But the major powers, the US, Russia, China, Israel, Australia, they have always opposed a full ban. They prefer non-binding codes of conduct.
So guidelines, not laws.
Yeah.
We promise we'll be careful, but they don't want to sign anything that actually stops them from building the tech.
Exactly. And the national positions are so contradictory. China, for instance, advocates for a ban on use of these weapons, but not a ban on development.
So we'll birth them, we'll put them in the warehouse, but we promise we won't be the first ones to turn them on.
It's a difficult position to trust in a crisis. Meanwhile, the U.S. stance is explicitly about achieving AI superiority. The Pentagon sees rapid adoption of AI as an absolute necessity to counter China. They want an AI-first force.
So it's an arms race pretending to be a diplomatic debate.
That's what it looks like. And the 7th Review Conference for the Treaty on Conventional Weapons is later this year. That is the moment. If a treaty isn't signed now, the speed of innovation, I'm talking about AI agents executing entire attack chains with no human input, it will permanently outpace our ability to regulate it.
It really feels like we're standing on a cliff edge. We've gone from debating if a robot could kill to building systems that do it efficiently to then gamifying the whole process to make them kill even better.
And we're doing it all with legal frameworks that were written for a different century.
So what's the bottom line for us, for you listening?
It means the era of the push-button war is over. We're entering the set-and-forget war. The move from human-in-the-loop to attritable swarms means the barrier to starting a conflict is getting lower and lower. It's just cheaper financially and politically to send a swarm of drones than a battalion of soldiers.
And when the barrier to war gets lower, war becomes more likely.
Precisely. And systems like Lavender show us that once this tech exists, the temptation to use it to speed things up, even at the cost of human oversight of civilian lives, it's overwhelming.
It's a very sobering reality check for February 2026.
Yeah.
We normally end these with a takeaway, but I think for this one we have to end with a question.
I agree. The one concept we kept coming back to was automation bias. We are hardwired to trust the screen, to trust the math. As these systems get faster and more efficient than our own brains, are we ever going to be able to actually say no to the machine? Or have we already effectively handed over the decision to kill?
Something to think about the next time you hear about a precision strike on the news. That's it for this deep dive into the age of the algorithm. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
And stay curious and critical.
Goodbye.